And on the right-hand side, we have a gentleman playing Rug Delver. And Patrick, you did such a nice job yesterday with the names that I'm going to give you first crack at this one.
Galan Falakfarsa? Falakfarsa.
All right. Galan it is. That's pretty good, though. That's pretty good.
I assume it's Falakfarsa.
Falakfarsa? Okay.
Yeah. And Joe Lossett.
And Joe Lossett, who I have seen around as well, too. He's a West Coast player. I know he lives in California, but he travels a fair amount to tournaments and stuff. I do see him quite a bit. So I believe that both of these players are 5-0 as well. We'll get confirmation on that, but it is going to be Rug Delver versus Countertop with a little bit of miracle action going on over there.
Yeah, we got 3 copies of Terminus and 2 copies of Entreat the Angels, and yeah, those are the big miracle spells. No Temporal Masteries to be found. He also has 1 copy of Portent in the deck to complement his.
Ooh.
Yeah, get a little fancy.
We're confused. Our show director is confusing us.
Yeah.
Please hold. There's a frowny face on our teleprompter.
Right.
And nothing else. Shoebox, what are you doing?
There's an Entreat. I looked.
I'll call you out on camera. I don't care.
There's 2 Entreats.
All right. Corrected the archetype. There we go.
All right. All right. So on the draw, Galan has a Delver of Secrets. One presumes.
Are you sure?
Not positive.
It could be anything.
Could be anything, really.
Rug Delver.
Looks like these players are X and 1 going into this round.
So I was incorrect, as usual. You get used to it after a while, though. But Delver of Secrets on turn 1. And there's nothing too outlandish about this particular Rug deck. The only thing that you guys will see there at home that's a little bit different is 2 Fire and Ices in the main deck. That's pretty much it. You're going to find your Bolts, your Ponders, the 12 creatures of Nimble Mongoose, Delver of Secrets, and Tarmogoyf, and all that stuff. So nothing crazy going on over here at all.
So Joe, and Counterbalance also very good against Rug Delver. It's been hard to actually find a deck to play Counterbalance in for a bit, but the deck is so 1-mana centric that Counterbalance plus reasonable defense card besides is a very good starting point for beating Rug Delver.
I mean, I'm just looking over Galan's list right now, and he has 28 spells that cost 1 mana. So if he's able to assemble,
there is Counterbalance.
If he's able to assemble the top balance soft lock, I mean, excluding the Delver Secret that is in play, 27 of his spells will be shut off just by top balance. So we're going to
have a Force of Will battle. It looks like.
And this is the card that you want to fight over. Of course,
yes.
It's too powerful against what Rug is trying to accomplish.
And I like Force of Will much better in decks like Lossett's than in a deck like Rug Delver, where the spells that Lossett is able to force through proactively are so much more devastating potentially than the Rug Delver, which is kind of using it just more as a tempo play.
Yeah, Rug Delver is using it not to die. Spell, Pierce.
A blind Counterbalance reveal on an upkeep Brainstorm.
So he's going to draw for his turn. He's going to reveal Daze. So he's got the clock. I'm going to assume, and I know you have Joe's deck list in front of you, that there are some number of swords or path exiles or something in his deck list.
There are 4 copies of Swords to Plowshares. There is also 1 copy of Oblivion Ring, and 3 copies of Jace, and 1 copy of Elspeth, and 2 copies of Entreat the Angels, and 3 Terminuses, which can all do varying degrees of work at containing a Delver of Secrets.
Sure. So, there is a soft lock now for Joe where no 1-mana spells are going to be able to be cast. He's going to draw that Spell Pierce. Now his job is just to find the opportunity to get a Sensei's Divine top into play.
Yep, or even just enough cantrips to sort of engineer the top of his deck.
Sure. And that is going to...
Portent. I assume this is going to be red? Yeah, all right.
Yeah, you're going to read it to me too, because I don't know what that one does.
I think it's like sorceries. Like, look at the top 3. I don't know. It's some sort of bootleg ponder. some off-brand delay cantrip ponder. I don't exactly know.
As I bring it up on my phone to get confirmation of exactly what this card does. You're old. You're supposed to know what this does.
I mean, I've definitely played a lot of kitchen table Magic with this card, but I can't remember. All right. Oh, it's basically like you can ponder yourself or ponder them.
And you draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep.
Right.
I love the slow draw.
The slow trips, yeah.
You, sir, cannot have that card right away. This card is too good for that.
Right. It's like a cantrip, except it's harder to remember that you're supposed to draw a card.
I also like the fact that you can portent them.
Oh yeah.
And set them up.
Yeah. I thought that it might have done it to them. I wasn't 100% sure, but I also didn't want to. I've been playing with a lot of Predict in Legacy also, so I didn't know if I was getting it confused with Predict.
Sure.
I know it was either Ponder both players or there's some sort of weird guessing game type card also.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the guessing game type card, but I know which one you're talking about. I can see the artwork in my head.
There's some like name a card type design.
Yeah. But I mean, for Joe right now, the only thing that matters for him, of course he would like to contain his spells and that sort of thing, but the problem right now is just the Insectile Aberration speeding him down. It's got him down. It looked to be 8 life, so he just needs to find a Swords or Miracle and Entreat the Angels or something to get this taken care of.
All right, there's another Delver, so
we should be triggering Counterbalance, I assume. Unless, oh well, he doesn't have to trigger Counterbalance because he knows the top cards of his deck from Portent, so he doesn't want to give that information away if he doesn't have to. Brainstorm.
Okay.
There's a good chance that the Counterbalance trigger is still on the stack.
Yes. One would assume. So Galan's still trying to fight through, but Lossett is not that far away from being able to grind him into dust, basically. Was that 3 lands he just brainstormed into?
I didn't get a very good look at him. And Galan is just ready to put that Delver of Secrets in the graveyard.
Yeah, you have to assume that if Joe is thinking this hard about it, he probably doesn't have a 1. You would have to guess. Alright, it resolves. He's not going to fight over it.
Okay.
And that is why, because we have a
that's why.
Terminus on the top.
And that makes perfect sense. I love the way the Miracle Mechanic just interacts with like this particular Legacy deck.
Oh yeah, it is right up this deck's alley, that's for sure.
With Brainstorm and Sensei's Divining Top and that sort of thing. I like just how well Terminus and Entreat the Angels interact with this deck.
Oh yeah,
I think it's relatively cool.
Yeah, definitely if you're like these Miracle cards are already good in like these grindy decks that fiddle around with the top of their deck, and like what better home for those kind of cards than Counterbalance.
Yeah, this particular deck. As we see, they're both going to go onto the bottom now.
And that's a big swing for Joe right there. He was, under the gun. Now he's got, time to get his shop set up. Not under any pressure, and he's still got Counterbalance in play. And he's a reasonably healthy life total. Obviously, he would still like to find a top very soon here. But.
Yes. He would like a top to basically lock this game away. So we'll see what Galan can come up with for his turn. We don't have a good look at his hand, but we know that he does have access to green mana with that Scalding Tarn if he'd like it.
Okay. Joe wants to shuffle here.
I think what's happening right now, even though we can't see it, it looks as though Galan's probably casting some sort of cantrip because he has the Volcanic Island tapped. And Joe is going to clear the top of his deck and hopefully reveal a 1, is my assumption. Even though we can't see the cantrip. There it is.
Ponder. Nope.
I had a feeling.
I remember Joe also is still aware of a daze in Galan's hand, so that's warping some of his play as well.
Sure.
So Galan now knows that the coast is clear for him to resolve whatever he wants this turn.
Yep, he can put something through, and we see a Nimble Mongoose sliding around through his hand, so he can get a threat on the table that also can't be swordsed or anything like that. So Nimble Mongoose is going to be rather good here.
Oh, yeah.
If he's able to get it into play.
No doubt. So yeah, it's just an issue of like, how do you prioritize your cards right now? Because this could be the last window you get some of the spells in your hand to resolve.
Yeah.
So you got to be very judicious about what you're going to do. Like, there's an argument for going Bolt You Nimble Mongoose because your Tarmogoyf or whatever requires more, all the plows that Joe can theoretically draw don't work against Tarmogoyf. Also, you're under more pressure to get the 1-mana spells out of your hand with Counterbalance in play because the Divining Top locks it all out.
Yeah, so you want to get them into play as soon as you possibly can.
All other things being equal, you want to pick your spots to get your 1-costers out of your hand. Let's see what we do here.
I gotta imagine
I like
it's
Nimble
gonna start-
Mongoose. I like Nimble Mongoose
too.
Bolt You.
That's what I like too. I don't like Tarmogoyf this turn. It is going to be Tarmogoyf.
Okay, it's risky. I mean, the upside's a little bit higher, but it is a risk.
Joe has Force. We know he has Spell Pierce too.
I feel like you kind of just have to force this.
I don't think your Force is going to get much better.
Yeah. It is basically Galen's entire turn.
Yeah. Especially when Joe knows what the top card of his deck is, which is Flooded Strand.
Yeah.
He can't allow this card to resolve.
Okay, it looks like it's happening.
Okay. So Joe is relatively safe right now, but 6 is... I mean, 6 is not a lot against Rug Delver. It only takes 2 bolts, or 1 attack from Nimble Mongoose and a bolt. And we see Elspeth. Okay.
Sure. We're just dazing here.
All right, well, he can pay. As he played his Flooded Strand. And I assume he's going to pay.
Yeah, I mean, 6 versus 5 is... I mean, it makes Fire Ice a slightly different card, but it's pretty close to the same life total.
Sure. Reveals for Counterbalance. Reveals Island, so no counterspell.
All right, he's got a second daze.
Gross. Okay. That is good, good, good. Boy, that is good.
So he has to do it in response to the fetch land being shuffled, because otherwise he gets a fresh Counterbalance reveal.
Yep.
With which he could have tagged the daze. So
the second daze.
Yeah, correct.
Yes.
So Galan timed that correctly. You
Yes.
don't want him to get another shuffle there.
So now Joe is doing pretty well, but he needs the top of his deck to
This needs to be
fairly...
one. Or it could be an Entreat. An Entreat would also be awesome here.
Yeah, it needs to be fairly polite on top of his deck. Reveal for balance.
Hooray!
Hey-o! It's a skill game. It's really easy to play with Counter BZ.
You want? And now he's got the bolt in his hands. Like, you want to try again?
Yeah. You want some more?
Yeah, come on. Let me know. Let me know. I can do this all day.
Let me show you how tough Magic is. Play a spell.
Whatever.
Oh, he's scared. He doesn't want to play a
A
spell.
little gun shy. I think you got to fire off your bolt though, because like.
You can't wait forever.
Also, you're just giving him more chances to draw like Brainstorm, which he's just gonna sit on.
Sure.
To try to fight your next spell with Counterbalance.
Sure.
It doesn't get better. It doesn't get better. As a man who's been logged under Counterbalance numerous times in my life, I can assure you, it only gets worse.
All right. What do you say? Hey, you. What do you say?
So yeah, this was the card that changes the fetch land.
Bink.
Bang!
See,
Take that.
What is that it's tough. That's what I like about Magic, is that it's so hard.
Does he have a second bolt to finish
I'm
the
gonna
job
bolt
here?
you?
Does he have another bolt?
He has the first bolt.
Yeah, but he needs another one right now. All right, so he's on 2.
Yeah, he's on 2 right now.
You want to try again? Nope.
He does have Snapcaster in his hand too, so Snapcaster for like Spell Pierce or something is like okay.
I want to portend this dude. That's what I want to do.
Yeah, well, he does have the fetch land. We gotta do something. We gotta do something to get that fetch land clear. Nimble Goose.
Ah, well.
Boy.
We're gonna counter that for free, I'm sure. Do we have a Brainstorm?
Maybe he has a Brainstorm.
Okay.
In the graveyard.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That seems like the best way to start.
Snappy! you want a Snapcaster Portent. I love it.
I want to just go to the nugget with that thing.
Yep.
Just go to the dome.
Target you, thanks.
Yeah. So
we're going to set up some stuff with Brainstorm, ideally.
bang.
Yep, there's that. Not a problem. Galan is without any cards in his hand. And Joe is just trying to hold on here.
Well, now he's got a little bit of breathing room because he can plow his own Snapcaster,
Yep,
so he can
I was
actually...
going to say the exact same thing.
Oh, or we can just put Divine Top into play and just lock it up.
Yeah,
So he can't actually be bolted out of the game at this point now on multiple levels. He could have plowed his Snapcaster in response to a lethal bolt, and now all of his one-costers are just locked.
Yep. Draw a card. It's going to be very difficult for Galan to be able to win this game now. He had some small windows open, but Counterbalance was rather cooperative for Mr. Lossett.
All right, so now we're in a pretty... It looks like he's looking at fetch, Counterbalance, which is actually, even though, you know, Joe's good on lands here, it's pretty nice to be in a position where you get to float a 2 on top of your deck, have Divining Top available as your 1, and then you basically lock out all of Galan's threatening plays. Like, you can't do anything proactive against that spread.
In for 2, and now it's just going to be the slow whittle down.
Yeah, we're going to be here for a little bit longer probably.
And now we have a Misty Rain. We have a Misty Rainforest in case we need to clear top.
Yeah.
In case the top 3 cards are of no use, he's going to be able to clear that to be able to find potentially find what he needs for Counterbalance.
I mean, the only castable spell in Galan's deck at this point is Force of Will, right? Everything else is locked.
I mean, assuming that there is a 2 and a 3, or a 1 and a 2 on top, as he's casting.
Yeah, now we get to float. Like I said,
2.
We get to float our 2.
Yep. So we have a Counterbalance to do that. He's going to reset, so he just draws a land and floats the 2 still around. Yeah, it looks like.
What's the last card? I mean,
it's got to be Lightning Bolt for it to be relevant, I would think. What's this here?
Vendilion Click.
Vendilion Click. And as you said, even if he missed with Counterbalance both times, it wouldn't have mattered.
And now Lossett is topping at the end of the turn, basically to make sure that he never wants to draw the Counterbalance.
Correct.
He wants to leave that on top the whole time. So between that and the Divining Top he can put on top of his deck anytime, he can lock out all of Galan's action here.
And now Galan's on a 3-turn clock as well.
Yeah.
Vendilion Click upped the clock substantially.
You got to see a daze in Galan's hand, which obviously totally fine. You can keep that one. It's on the house. And there's a concession.
That's it. So Joe Lossett's going to move up a game against Galan here in the Blue-White Miracles versus Rug Delver matchup. And Pat, I know that you do have Joe's deck list in front of you, so anything helpful in the sideboard?
He has another copy of Terminus, which I like a lot. He has 2 copies of Baneslayer Angel, which I think are actually very good in this matchup.
Yeah, me too.
And he has 2 copies of Humility, which I assume is actually for Reanimator matchups, but Humility actually isn't even horrible against the Rogue decks. He's only got 12 dudes. They're all powerful guys individually, so it's a little bit slow. I would be surprised if he brought it in, but I wouldn't rule it out entirely. He also has another copy of Spell Snare, which I like, especially going second.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Taking a look at Galan's deck list, Pyroblast is something he's going to want for Counterbalance, purely. No real use from Submerge here or Ancient Grudge. Ancient Grudge catching Sensei's top is rather difficult to do. Surgical Extraction is something he may want. Life in the Loam in these type of decks are typically to recur Wastelands and Fetch Lands, so you hit all your land drops. But it looks like Joe has enough basic lands in his deck that Wasteland should never really be an issue.
Yeah, Joe has 7 basic lands in his deck.
Sure. And then I just see a Scavenging Ooze here, which I don't really think has much of an effect in this matchup. I know Joe has a couple Snapcaster Mages.
Yeah,
but
it's basically no value.
Okay.
So
So we can just expect the three Power Blasts to fight what is most definitely the most important card in this matchup, which is Counterbalance.
I would assume that either Humility or Baneslayer Angel is coming in, probably not both, since they are not a combo.
Sure.
And I believe Baneslayer feels like it's more for this matchup than Humility would be.
Sure. I think that Baneslayer is the card that's going to stabilize the board if Joe is behind, much better than Humility will.
It's also really nice, I think, in this matchup because your instinct when you're on, like, you know, the red-blue Goblin Guide Delver deck or the Rug Delver deck is, I'm going to cut my bolts. It doesn't have that many targets for them. So certainly, like, the Fire Ices and the Chain Lightnings are your low-impact cards. And if you don't have those sort of effects, when Baneslayer shows up, it's just like, well, it's over. Like, you can't kill it.
Yeah, you can never kill it. You can't block it, and you can't attack. Yeah, right. it's just over.
So it's especially good given how you would anticipate the average Rug or Blue-Red beatdown deck to be sideboarding against you as well.
Sure.
Like if they're bringing in Pyroblast and you're bringing in Baneslayer Angel, it's actually a pretty good situation for you to be in.
It's a nice one-up. It makes it so you're not so reliant on Counterbalance being in play and resolving. Yeah. And you know, once you get to 5 mana, and the game is probably going to go long enough that you're going to be able to do that. If that resolves, the game is over. So
for sure. So I'm pretty sure I like Lossett's side of the matchup here.
Yeah, I do.
That game was pretty hairy. I mean, if he doesn't hit with some of those blind counterbalances, he could have very easily lost that game. I mean, he needed, you know, every single. I think there was 3 1 reveals, maybe 3 sounds about right.
Yeah, 3 sounds about right. And all 3 were very, very important. So things definitely broke his way that game. But I mean, that's all part of playing a bunch of 1s and 2s in your Counterbalance deck. That's why they're there.
Yep.
1s and 2s are what this format is built on outside of Force of Will. And interestingly enough, Baneslayer Angel is a 5, Force of Will is a 5. That could come up.
Oh, yeah.
And if there's a reveal of Baneslayer Angel to a Counterbalance for a Force of Will,
yeah, good moment.
Yeah.
Good moments in Legacy history.
It's no portent being cast, but it'll do.
It'll do.
As Joe's going to go to 6 here, while Galan's going to keep his opening 7. Are you kind of surprised that we don't see more blue-white Miracles or blue-white, you know, countertop decks seeing play?
I mean, I think the deck's fine. I think it's a totally legitimate tournament choice. I think that the actual, you know, mental wear and tear of playing this deck and trying to finish inside of time for 8 rounds is just, it is a grind. And I think, you know, my experience at Grand Prix Columbus, where Counterbalance was a huge part of the metagame there, I know that a lot of friends of mine who played that deck walked away saying, like, I wish I'd played anything else. Because, like, by the middle point of day 2, they were just ground down to a nub. They could not take it anymore. How long your games go, how complicated your decisions are, the tedium of using your Divining Top every turn. There's definitely a type of player that enjoys that very much. But for players who are just kind of like looking to pick up a Legacy deck to play some Legacy, I would be surprised if that was a deck they would go to, unless they felt it was overwhelmingly good.
Sure, and I mean, we see Joe going to 5 here, which is rather unfortunate for his deck, but Sensei's Top is a card that can undo mulligans relatively well. I would agree with you. I know that, you know, a couple of years ago, Countertop was a huge player in the metagame, but yeah, it is a difficult deck to play for, I mean, a Grand Prix is 16 rounds.
Yeah.
And this is only 8, and it's still going to be difficult.
Flooded Strand from Joe.
So we'll see if Delver is going to flip. We see him getting this here and a Sensei Top.
Yeah, ideally you would want to be getting basic lands here to play around Wasteland.
Yep.
But given that Joe mulliganed to 5, he simply might not have enough lands to have the luxury to do that.
Yeah, so he's going to need to be able to brainstorm and to be able to source the plowshares, that sort of thing. Perhaps reveal Terminus.
Yeah. So he might be opening himself out here to a Wasteland.
We see a Daze on the Sensei's Divining Top, which is relatively backbreaking. No reveal for the Delver for the full kick in the face.
Yeah.
But the top was going to be really important for Joe on his mulligan to 5 this game.
It's a Glacial Fortress. Joe has 2 copies in his deck.
We're going to see.
This is a funny. you know, because of choke and whatever else, it is funny to see deck lists that are 2 Glacial Fortress, 3 Tundra.
Yeah, it's because of Glacial Fortress is also because of Master of the Pearl Trident, Lord of Atlantis, stuff like that. And we see a Relic of Progenitus, which is relatively good against Tarmogoyf and Nimble Mongoose.
I'm a huge fan. My Burnside board has multiple copies of this. I mean, it is mostly for the Rug matchup. I mean, the stuff you get against the graveyard decks is nice, but it's very, very good against Rug.
Sure. Making Tarmogoyf, being able to control Tarmogoyf, having it be an 0/1 whenever you like it to, and cantripping because of that is really, really powerful.
Yep, and it looks like Galan is just appears to be without green mana.
Yep.
Joe's going to cycle his Relic.
Kind of looks like he wants to kind of jump on the opportunity while Galan is struggling over there with his mana. Going to Miracle and Treat the Angels, and a 4/4 is not bad at all.
Yeah. So we're entreating for 1.
Which is funny because like it's only one 4/4, but a 4/4 is like, we talk about how good Baneslayer Angel is here. A 4/4 is a lot for him to deal with.
Yeah, and again, he might be like really shy on removal spells, you know.
Yeah.
And this is another thing that we sort of mentioned is he has Pyroblast in his hand, and the meaningful cards that Joe has brought in or has drawn this game are white.
Are white cards, yeah.
Angel in for 4. And 4 toughness is really the range where the Rug deck is just really struggles to kill creatures at that range.
Yeah, and presuming that they did what we think they're going to, presuming that Galan did what we think he's going to do, which is boarding out his bolts because they're his lowest impact card, he could just be drawing close to dead to just a 4/4 Angel token.
Right, he might just, he might be dead in 4 turns.
Yeah.
Presuming he has to crack a fetch land at some point here.
Sure. I mean, he has 8 fetch lands versus 6 actual dual lands, and 2 of those dual lands are in play. So, I mean, math dictates he's probably going to draw one of his fetch lands.
Dang.
I'm so smart.
So smart.
Ugh. How do I ever lose when I'm this smart? Oh, I play a learn. That's normally what does it.
A lot of a learn.
So much to learn.
That Relic in Joe's sideboard is a singleton.
How many entreats does he play?
2.
2? Sure. We're going to see a Delver of Secrets. It's funny to me that Delver of Secrets is like part 1 of dealing with the Angel token. If he has Bolt, it's like you trade Bolt and Delver for Angel token. It's just like, yeah, that's the best trade in the world.
And Delver does not flip.
We see him just getting in there for 1.
Yep, I assume this is going to be acceptable to Joe.
Yeah.
And Tarmogoyf
trying to speed things up a little bit as we see him crack. I foresee a hardcast Force of Will probably coming here. I think that's the only real reason that he would crack that quickly.
Yep. I think the last card in Joe's hand is Terminus.
Okay. The card that he does not want to cast.
Yeah. It's insurance against things breaking bad.
All right, there's the
farm here, but so if you're Joe and you draw a land here, are you just attacking and casting Terminus, or are you willing to ride this race for a little bit?
I think I'm going to try to win the race, right?
Yeah, it looks good for him. It's 2 turns against. It's probably much greater than 2 for Galan to be able to kill him.
Well, 3 turns.
Well, yeah. Go now. It's now we're at 2 turns. For
okay, sure. Gotcha.
That's what I meant. And Joe is not looking to race.
He's going to slow it down.
Yep, not looking to race.
Interesting to me that he slowed down there.
Well, the Tarmogoyf also can't attack right now. Tarmogoyf's only a 3/4, if I'm looking at things correctly. Because it's just instant land.
Sorcery.
What's the sorcery?
Entreat the Angels.
Okay, yeah. So it's a,
And Relic removes itself from the game. So there is no artifact.
This is a pretty reasonable spot, right? Like, he can sit back on D, and he can force Galan to, like, you know, spend some cards trying to plow through the Angel, and then he has Terminus as backup in case things go bad.
Okay. I mean, if things were just to go the way that... If Joe were just to attack last turn and we go...
All right, he's going to
pull Lightning Bolt, sure. 8 to 10...
Oh, he has actual factual counterspell.
And he has actual factual spell snare.
Yeah. So we're still just trading off here.
Sure.
And Joe's going to fall to 13. That's a singleton counterspell.
So now we have to be able to deal with our friend, Mr. Insectile Aberration.
Yeah. I mean, lands are good for us and spells are good for us, so...
Yeah, I think most draws in the deck are relatively good. And if he's tapping out this turn to cast, say, another Tarmogoyf...
Yeah, then your Terminus is just awesome.
Yeah. Uncle Baneslayer is probably the best draw.
Oh yeah, Baneslayer is definitely the most powerful combined with awesome draw.
Yeah. Just for fun factor alone.
Baneslayer! Alright, I guess we're just casting
Terminus, no days. Days?
Probably
Papa days?
not.
No, sir.
I think he... Alright, and now Joe is empty-handed, but he's got a ton of huge draws.
Yeah, live as can be.
We don't know how much gas Galan has left in the tank here. He's gone through a lot of his creatures. He only has 12 total, so... This is a Delver.
Yeah. So he's still got a shot.
Baneslayer. Baneslayer.
Swords.
I think you want to play the island there. You're not really bluffing anything, and if you have Entreat, you'd rather...
Oh, was that an island he drew?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was a Source of Plowshares.
No.
We saw two very different cards. I guess they both could potentially be white-bordered, so...
Yeah, Joe does like his revised lands.
What was that draw step?
Counterbalance.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Especially now that he knows that Galan has days in his hand, he should certainly be playing that island. Like, you're not bluffing anything, right?
Interesting time to Spell Pierce. We know his other
again,
card.
I would rather be saving that for an Entreat, I think.
We know his other card is Days, too.
Yeah, that was revealed to the Delver on the previous turn.
I wouldn't cast that Spell Pierce. It doesn't accomplish anything.
Yeah. So Joe's gonna fall to 7. Baneslayer.
You want it so bad.
Baneslayer. The crowd is calling for it.
A crowd of one.
You definitely want to play the Flooded Strand.
Absolutely.
Although you don't really want to break it because it means you go from dead in 3 turns to dead in 2 turns. But with Counterbalance in play, it just gives you a redraw. Come on.
All right, I'm on board. Come on, Baneslayer.
Come on.
Flooded Strand. We got to play that island now, I think.
There's no cost.
Yeah, I think you have to play it now. Yep, there you go. 1.
Baneslayer. We're still good.
Oh, Baneslayer, I need you now more than ever.
We need you.
Reveal. Yeah,
Wow.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
That's good.
We'll take it. No problems there.
Do you have to cast it now?
What harm does it do?
I guess sure. I mean, just casting the Upkeep was something I was considering. I don't think it matters.
Just days. Why not?
Casting Dazes.
Like I
guess it doesn't matter, but
well, it doesn't. You don't want to spend your cards like this because you still theoretically have Brainstorm plus Shuffle in your deck. So all the cards in your hand can, in theory, eventually be shuffled away and turned into new cards anyway. So you just want to be firing off.
And if you're Joe, you're not even going to reveal the top card of your deck. You don't want to give. You don't want to give Galan the information. It's just like, okay, I'll pay for it. I have no reason to reveal it and try to hard counter it. I have all the mana in the world.
I think Galan might be under the impression that the reveal is mandatory. I think that might be the problem.
Sure.
So while we get this resolved, okay, he's just gonna try to bolt him to death, and there's a Caracas on top, so that's game.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah, so I guess what he was trying to do was induce Joe to reveal with his counterbalance so he would know if the coast was clear for his lightning bolt.
Understood. Understood. Makes a little bit more sense now.
Yeah.
Sure.
So on to game 3, Joe definitely significantly harmed, obviously, by his 5-card mulligan.
Sure. I mean, you can just see like how favorable this matchup seems for Joe.
Yes.
I mean, given that he mulliganed to 5 cards, was getting beaten down pretty handily, and his draws were incredibly live to win that game.
Yeah.
When we had gotten into that position, it just shows that this matchup was probably fairly good for him.
Yeah. And, you know, Joe has a pretty healthy swath of creature removal effects, and Galan only has 12 creatures. Obviously, that number isn't entirely fair because he has a bunch of cantrips to find them and whatever else, but it's relatively creature-light. Something that I would like in the sideboard if I was in Joe's position for this matchup would be a single copy of Moat. I actually think that could do... Because then at that point, you're basically... The only card that matters is...
Delver's Secrets.
Right, and you're going to win in the air anyway with Entreat or Baneslayer Angel, so it doesn't affect anything that you're doing.
Sure. That seems completely reasonable to me.
Like, I would much rather have a Moat in my deck than an Elspeth, for example, in this matchup. Like, as far as the 4-mana spell goes.
Sure. No, that makes sense to me.
So, Joe doing some reconfiguring here, it looks like. He has, you know, it's possible that he wants... I can see if you're on the play, he has 1 counterspell in his main deck and 1 counterspell on his board. I can see wanting to go up to the second copy of counterspell when you're on the play and not having 2 of them when you're on the draw.
That makes sense to me as well. I'm not sure exactly what card you want to board out to do that.
Right.
Jace is relatively good against Galan's deck. I mean, it's Jace that's good at just about everything.
I really don't like
on Elspeth.
I really don't like Click in this matchup from Joe's perspective.
Okay.
I don't think you ever want to give him cards that'll just allow him to trade profitably with his lightning bolts.
Sure. Since he's established the fact that he's going to leave them in.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Looks like both players are keeping.
All right. We'll start with the Misty. He's going to crack that. Probably going to see a Sensei's top here.
Yeah, I would assume. Or a Portend. Just nug him.
Yep.
Straight to the dome.
Target you. I've got a feeling.
I want to see what's up.
Yeah, I got a feeling over there.
Yeah, there's a Divining Top. Now, Galan is going to force this. Actually, not a huge fan of forcing.
I'm not terribly a big fan of forcing this either. 2 for 1ing yourself, and then this isn't even the most important card. It's relatively important, and I could see forcing it if you'd mulligan once or twice. But Counterbalance is the card, in my opinion, that you want to fight over, and right. I see a Counterbalance hiding in Joe's hand.
Okay. Like, because Divining Top isn't particularly good unless he has Counterbalance. Counterbalance can be good even if you don't have Divining Top.
Yes.
So it seems like you'd much rather fight over a Counterbalance than a Divining Top.
We can see in Galan's hand that he does have a Red Blast or Pyroblast, whichever one
right.
he has in his deck.
That's why I wonder if Joe is just hesitant to cast his Counterbalance here because he knows that Daze and Snare and Pyroblast, all cards he's seeing tag it right now.
Yes. You give me a state of just, I'm going to make you have it.
Yep. And you also are just more comfortable trading 1 for 1 after someone's already forced.
Yeah, sure. You're perfectly fine with that.
Just run them out, and you know you can try to run them out, trade 1 for 1, and then one of your big spells can just wrap up the game from there.
Yep. Entreat or Baneslayer Angel, something of that nature. And the Force was one of the cards that it took was one of Galan's cantrips as well. So.
Yeah.
You see a Delver of Secrets.
There appears to be a plow in Joe's hand.
Yeah, I did see a plow in Joe's hand, and we see a Sensei's Divining Top being cast here. Obviously, this is I wouldn't say this is the strongest argument I can come across, but this is part of the reason I don't like forcing Sensei's Divining Top is because they can just draw another one.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you've 2 for 1 yourself. Obviously, you can't control what your opponent draws for the most part unless you're playing 18 portents, but...
Right. But the only one way to stop a top deck is just to grill their deck.
That's right. As we're going to see a Brainstorm go on the stack, a Source of Plowshares in response targeting Delver of Secrets. I'm fairly sure that Galan does have a Daze in his hand, which we do see here, so the sword is going to get countered.
Yeah. So I think ideally what Joe was hoping for there, because he missed his 3rd land drop, was to just be able to spin his top. But with a Brainstorm going on the stack, I think it's just too attractive to try to tag the Delver right there.
Sure.
Because at that point, the only thing that really stops you is Daze, and Daze is already going to be good against your landlight hand anyway.
Yep. Reveal for Delver. We'll see another Daze.
I'm surprised of all the instances you could possibly have that would be the one that you would want to show someone. I would much rather show them Force of Will than Daze. Because
I think Force of Will drastically changes the way that they play.
Well, Daze definitely. I mean, Daze even more so.
Yeah, I mean, Daze even more so, but like Force of Will, knowing that your opponent has that, it'll change the way they play, but they could run into a Daze. Well, now he won't run into a Daze, but it'll also change the way that he plays too.
Right.
So it's kind of difficult, right, on which card you actually want to show them. Because if you show them Daze and you don't show them Force of Will, then you're thinking, okay, I just have to play around this Daze, and then you get your card forced.
Yeah. I don't know, with Joe so landlight though.
Yeah, I mean, he's not in great shape right now, especially if this Delver of Secrets flips into Insectile Aberrations turn. He's under the gun like crazy.
Like imagine that Joe has Terminus in his spin right there of Divining Talk.
Sure.
You might be fine. It's like, well, I have to get through this Force of Will anyway, and you know, I'm not going to get a better spot to cast my Terminus than this. Now, knowing that Daze is there, now he's just going to wait.
Sure.
And you might just end up getting jammed up with the Daze.
No reveal, but we're going to stop here. Interesting.
Like Joe's operations in the previous turn and this turn right now are definitely being influenced by the fact that he knows that Daze is his opponent's hand.
Sure. Terminus.
Like if you show Force of Will, there's a very good chance that Joe does that play on his own turn instead, and you get to Daze it and keep your Force of Will.
Sure, sure, understood. In for 4.
Is Galan out of the hand? He's just on his draw step now?
He played a Misty. It looks like he's out of a hand.
Yeah.
I'm going to draw top this turn. Or are we going to stop for something? They might have. It looks like you might have a life total discrepancy.
Yeah.
What it sounds like to me. So while they get that cleared up, it looks like they're doing okay now. The coast is clear for Joe. He needs to find lands. He needs to find spells. He just needs to get the cards that are in his hand out of his hand.
Yep. He doesn't need to find much more. He needs, you know, like another copy of Terminus. There's a counterbalance here, but I think that Joe's bigger priority is just trying to find an answer of some sort to this, whether, you know, to the attacks that are going on, whether it be, you know, Baneslayer, Angel, or another Terminus, whatever. That's where the priority is.
He's got to beat what's on the board.
Oh yeah.
We'll see a tank. And Galan. It looks like an attack for 4 is going to put Joe down to 7. That attack, it does put him down to 7. It's going to be virtually 6 because of Misty Rainforest. So
yeah, I think he has to break this because the counterbalance and the counterspell that he has on top of his deck just don't mean anything.
Yep.
So his big draws at this point, like Terminus is the best one by far. Entreat counts. So we're going to spin the top here. There's a Jace.
3. That's an Entreat.
What's the white card? Entreat? Okay.
So 1/4/4 is definitely not bad.
Yep. And we know that Galan doesn't have a bolt in his hand because he failed to flip his Delver on the previous turn.
Sure. Going to reveal this. I mean, you're going to assume that he does not have... You have to assume that card's not an instant.
I know it's not a spell, so...
Yeah. Unless he's just trying to get a little too techy. By not
I don't know.
by
I would
flipping
probably just
Delver.
want to attack my opponent to 4.
Yeah, yeah. I know.
I think we can safely assume it's a land, right? He would have cast a creature. He would have revealed the spell.
Yeah.
So it's almost certainly a land. All right, that's
It's a game-winning draw. Unless Joe has Force Will in his hand, that's a game-winning draw.
Yeah.
Block 1. It's game.
It's a rough draw for Joe right there. He was not. He was It looked like he was on the cusp of stabilizing that game.
Yes.
He was right there.
Yep. But Galan is going to take the win 2-1 with his Roy Delver deck over Joe Lossett. It's going to bring him, I think, both players were X and 1, so it's going to bring Galan up to what's round 6, so 5-1. With 2 rounds left to play today in the Star City Games Legacy Open.